Hey guys, how are you doing? I hope you are keeping well and staying safe. My name is Jen Grieves and I've lived with type 1 diabetes for almost 24 years. I published a video a couple of weeks ago, which coincidentally is probably the last time I made this much effort, as the UK was entering lockdown, and I'd been in self-isolation for about 10 days or so at that point, feeling generally okay and pretty good as we adapted to the global pandemic that is currently taking place. A few of you got in touch to say that staying inside and being at home was definitely having an impact on your blood sugars, namely they were creeping up. So I thought I'd talk a bit today about how lockdown has been affecting my blood sugars as someone with type 1 diabetes and what I've been doing to try and tackle that a little bit. Adapting to a stressful day or a stressful week or even a stressful month is one thing. Adapting to a completely unprecedented, never seen before global pandemic is a whole other level. Our hormones right now are different, our food might be different, our movement is different, our interactions are different, the day-to-day stresses are different, some might be quite reduced and others might be hugely increased. And so of course I think inevitably type 1 diabetes is going to be affected simply because of the way it works, the way it operates, how much hormones have a part to play in all of this. Obviously in these weird times how I'm feeling changes from one day to the next, like I know many other people are experiencing, and that also can have an impact on those pesky blood sugars, because why not make it even more fun? Most of the time, I'd say 85–90% of the time, I'm just feeling so super lucky and grateful to have this safe space to isolate in, that I'm healthy and well, that my family are safe and well, and that I can do my bit as long as it takes to get this over with so that we can all go back to normal and hug each other again. That being said, there have been a couple of days where I've just felt maybe a bit lonely or a bit meh, a bit flat, but you know what? That happens in day-to-day normal life as well. So I'm trying not to dwell on it, but it's those days that I feel like I really need to look out for, because that's where this well-oiled machine I've got when it comes to living with type 1 diabetes starts to falter. One thing I absolutely am focusing on in all this is being kind to myself, no matter what type of day I have, diabetes or otherwise. As we've got more time on our hands, it might be easier to dwell on those stubborn blood sugars or the rogue ones that don't make sense, because we haven't got our normal distractions and we also haven't got our normal go-tos that keep it all in perspective and make it feel less bad. So yeah, whether I'm super productive, get loads done, exercise, check in with lots of people, or if I've shut off WhatsApp, shut off the news, sat in front of Netflix and poured myself a glass of wine, it's all okay. In the sea of a lifetime of living with type 1 diabetes, one bad day does not define us. This is all to say that on the whole, right now, I'm doing everything I can to keep not only my blood sugars as stable as possible, but my mind as strong as possible, and I think the two go hand in hand. So, what does this look like for me? The main thing for me right now, annoying as it is to hear, I'm sure, is to try and keep moving. I say move rather than exercise because movement comes in many forms and it's all valid, and it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be pounding the treadmill in your garage for 2 hours a day, if you have a treadmill, and actually if you have a garage, because I certainly don't. I say this with the caveat that I am an active person anyway. I do exercise regularly and I'm absolutely useless at sitting still all day at the best of times, but as I said, movement comes in many forms, and even getting that daily walk in I think is so important for our bodies and our minds and our blood sugars. Running isn't something I do super regularly, but I found myself leaning towards it because it's win for so many boxes when it comes to things I think are quite important right now. It gets me out of the house, it gets me into fresh air and into nature. It gives me headspace, which I find really helpful in terms of mental clarity and therefore productivity later on. It is very easy to work up a sweat, it gets my step count up, and of course it keeps my insulin sensitivity up. It also means if I am inclined to eat a bigger meal, on a given day that my metabolism hasn't ground to a halt, so my body is better able to kind of deal with it without relying on huge amounts of insulin. Even walking every day is super beneficial, and actually if you're someone that isn't massively active, walking is potentially more beneficial for you than running. Other things you can do to incorporate movement are just really simple things and silly things and fun things, but they all count. Dancing around the kitchen while you're cooking is a personal fave. Whacking on your favourite song mid-morning and mid-afternoon and just having a bop around the house. Playing ball games with the kids if you've got a garden. Some vigorous spring cleaning is a good one. That always sends my blood sugars down. There are loads of ways you can incorporate just these little bits of movement that mean you aren't sat at a desk all day and then you just roll and flop to the sofa. Roll and flop. Do you like what I did there? And then roll and flop into bed as well. I'm also doing quite a few home workouts that my gym has sent me, and honestly it is just the main thing that's keeping those blood sugars in check right now and keeping me sane as well. Obviously exercise absolutely will impact your blood sugars, so you need to just take precautions and make sure you're keeping yourself safe in terms of carrying hypo snacks around and things like that, but I'm not a doctor and you need to do what you need to do. So yeah, disclaimer. Despite prioritizing movement, I am finding at the moment that I need to allow longer for a pre-bolus. So that is the time between taking your insulin for the food you want to eat and actually eating that food, which can lead to many minutes of staring wistfully at the food on your plate or at the fridge before you tuck in. Easier said than done. I think it's because normally when I'm eating, I've been dashing about all day, or I've just been running around living my life in London, whereas now I kind of go from sitting to stuffing my face. So I've needed kind of 20 to 30 minutes depending on where my blood sugars are at before eating. I take Novo Rapid insulin, which is a fast acting insulin, although it's more like Slovo Rapid, am I right? Just a little diabetes in joke for you there. Luckily I have access to a Dexcom G6 CGM, which helps me track exactly when that insulin starts to kick in. I can just watch the CGM graph and catch when my blood sugars start to dip, and that is when I know it's time to tuck in. Let's talk about food. I am someone that previously has had quite a difficult relationship with food, but happily, with a lot of work and ongoing effort, I now have quite a good relationship with food. I love food, in fact. I love cooking, I love experimenting with new flavors and trying things, and eating out is one of my favorite things to do in the whole wide world. So that's great. That being said, when things are stressful, my natural inclination is to kind of tip into those old habits and reach for carby snacks. Add to that the fact that we as type 1 diabetics have to analyze and account for everything we put in our mouths, because we have to cover it off with insulin and try and figure out what that dosage should be. It makes it all quite tricky, as you well know if you live with type 1 yourself. On top of that, no 2 days are the same. I can eat the same thing 2 days in a row and need slightly different insulin doses to get the same result when it comes to keeping my blood sugars, hopefully, on the straight and narrow. So yeah, it's complicated. With all the work that I've done over the years to really tune into my body and listen to my body, and I do have a great relationship in terms of knowing what nourishes my body, makes it feel good, makes my brain function as best as it can. Right now, with this current situation, I'm dialing down on certain types of carbohydrates because I simply don't need them, and it's not worth the hassle in terms of where it may send my blood sugar levels and the amount of extra effort and work I have to do around my insulin doses to try and stop my blood sugars from skyrocketing. I don't eat huge amounts of starchy carbs on the whole generally, because it's just not how my body functions optimally. So the types of carbs I eat are sweet potatoes, oats. I generally know what helps my body run at its prime. So I'm focusing on whole food sources, as always, good proteins, moderate amounts of fat, like I have a tendency to attack the peanut butter jar with a spoon. That's not gonna help you right now. That's what works for me. I know other people might be high carb, low fat, or plant-based, or a mixture of all these things, or just eat whatever they want and deal with it as best they can. Whatever works for you, but I'm being mindful of what makes me feel good, what helps my brain function, and what I know works for my particular chemical makeup in my body. I also practice intermittent fasting. It's something I've done for about a year now for a whole host of health benefits. I absolutely love it. But one of the side benefits, I guess, not the reason I got into it, is blood sugar stability. So that is absolutely something I'm continuing with because it is just how I live my life now. And yeah, I've definitely found that to help. Having more time on my hands as well, I've been really getting back into cooking. I love cooking, but I guess you cook for convenience or you cook for speed a lot of the time when you're trying to fit in the rest of your life. So yeah, I've really enjoyed whacking on a podcast, chopping up some veg, and yeah, playing around in the kitchen. And with that, I can then see how foods react and respond in my body in terms of how they affect my blood sugar levels. So if you are up for a bit of experimenting, now might be the time. I've also taken out snacks because I simply don't need the energy, I don't need the calories. I'm not really a snacker anyway. It's actually easier to snack here, I think, because as you can see, I can basically reach my kitchen from my sofa at any given time of the day. Again, saying all this, but that's not to say I haven't wanted to eat a whole tub of ice cream, and I'd be lying if I said I hadn't done that on a lonely spring evening in lockdown once or twice. The next thing I want to talk about is sleep. Sleep is the key component for me when it comes to my overall health. It is absolutely the foundation of everything else that I am. Sounds boring, yes, but I'm old, and my type 1 diabetes is completely linked into this. If I get a good night's sleep, I'm brighter, lighter, more productive, I'm a better friend, I've got more time for people, I'm more rational, I'm more logical, I'm more positive. Although I did not sleep a wink last night because of the supermoon, so yeah, that was fun. With my type 1 diabetes, oh my goodness, I find that if I have a bad night's sleep, that is where those erroneous, erratic blood sugar readings start to appear. The ones that just don't make sense, that you can't quite understand. And it's all self-perpetuating because if I'm tired, I'm less likely to exercise, I'm less likely to make good food choices, and then probably the next night I'll get a crap night's sleep because maybe my Dexcom alarms are going off left, right, and center, because my blood sugars are doing funky things, and yeah, so it spirals. I have found at the moment that I haven't been sleeping as much, and I believe, and I've completely made this up and plucked this from absolutely nowhere, that my day-to-day isn't as much of a sensory assault as it normally is when I'm running around, interacting with lots of people, focusing on lots of different things and doing lots of stuff and fitting in that appointment and making sure I pick up the groceries, etc., etc. I find that because I'm living more simply, potentially I don't need to like repair as many parts of my brain at night. Is that a thing? I don't know. Some of my friends have found that they are sleeping a lot more, and I don't know if that's because we're in this constant state of kind of low level anxiety subconsciously or otherwise, or maybe they're simply catching up on 4 years worth of late nights. I don't know. That leads me into structure. I said it in my last video, but there's nothing diabetes loves more than routine. So I try and have these pillars that are very consistent in my day-to-day, and then everything else kind of works from there. So the non-negotiables for me in the morning are get up, make the bed, get washed. You'll be pleased to know my hygiene standards haven't slipped during lockdown. Get dressed and then sit at a workspace. I don't work from my bed because I want my brain to only associate that with resting and sleeping. I've also tried to give myself a bit more of a morning routine because I don't have to allow time to commute, and it can be so tempting to wake up 1 minute before you need to be at the desk and online, but actually that really doesn't help my dawn phenomenon. Dawn phenomenon is something a lot of type 1 diabetics get when you get a spike of your blood sugar levels as you wake up. And our body is designed to do that. That is a release of cortisol that prepares you to be prepared for whatever the day may throw at you, to awaken you and get you ready for your day. However, if I wake up and just get going, I find that I do really get that spike. What I've tried to do is allow myself half an hour to have a cup of coffee, to not immediately switch my brain on, to not check my email straight away, to not respond to anyone straight away, to not check the news straight away. And I have found that that has helped with that morning like spike. The next thing I do is around, I guess, having a focus for every day. I'm not talking about your huge work to-do list. I write lists though for everything, because if I don't, I have a very busy brain, there's lots going on in there, I spin a lot of plates and I get easily distracted by all the things going on and I kind of get nothing done. So I write things down and then I can tick them off. It makes me feel more accomplished, more productive. I can see that in this really weird span of time that I am actually achieving things. And I think then my brain, or just my outlook, is generally more equipped to tackle the things that type 1 diabetes might throw at me while I'm living my day-to-day life. And I don't mean write things down like must learn Spanish, everything from taking the bins out, paying a bill, replying to an email, checking in with a relative. Simple things that you can then sit and tick off, and you can feel like this weird void of time you are actually doing things. So my last point is around stress. Stress has a huge impact on my blood sugar levels, and with that my blood sugar levels can have a huge impact on my stress levels. And again, here we are at this self-perpetuating cycle that can be really hard to shake off. So at the moment, as I said before, I'm just trying to be kind to myself with my diabetes, but also in terms of what I think I potentially could be doing with this time. And knowing that from one day to the next, I might feel really differently about what I want to do that day, or how productive I'm going to be, or the things I want to focus on. And obviously all of this is so much easier said than done, because we want to have good blood sugars, we want to stay in range, because that means we've got a better, stronger, healthier immune system, and we're doing the best for our bodies. But ultimately, sometimes we can do the best we can and we can do everything right, and the blood sugars still don't make sense. So it's so important, I personally believe, not to berate myself for that. As I said before, we've got a whole lifetime of this. We are adapting to something we've never had to deal with before, that has so many factors and elements and uncertainty, and the last thing we need right now is to place more stress on ourselves unnecessarily. Oh, got a bit carried away with that one, sorry. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. You'll be pleased to know that that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope some of this has been useful or resonated with you, or you can relate to some of it at least. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything you are doing that's helping stop those blood sugars creep up too much that I've missed off. And let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular you'd like me to make a video around, because now that I'm back in the camera game, I've got some time on my hands. So yeah, let me know, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you all again soon. Take care, look after yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and stay at home. See you soon, bye.